And welcome to a special Sunday matinee edition
Mhm.
of Lando's Palace. I'm your co-host Kahari Mosley here with Thando, aka Nathaniel Broadus, the Nathandalorian. We also have Lukman Abdul Salam, Grey Jedi Luki in the house. Welcome to episode 11. Apologies, for those who wanted to check us out this morning. We had some scheduling difficulties. So this was the time we were able to get together. We all can have internet access. So we got a great a show for you this afternoon. We are going to be talking about the new announcement from Marvel Comics, which is the War of the Bounty Hunter comic book that's coming out. It's actually not. It's a series, a short series. I think 6 episodes that are going to drop beginning in June. And they also arc some of the existing Star Wars Marvel comic pieces, the Darth Vader, Doctor Aphra, as well as the Tales of the Bounty Hunter piece. Is going to merge, with those and intersect. But from what I understand, the main piece of it is it charts Boba Fett's journey from when Han Solo was frozen in carbonite, on Cloud City at the end of Empire Strikes Back, and then it takes you to what happens in between that time from Bespin and Cloud City to back to Tatooine when he delivers Han Solo and Carbonite to Jabba the Hutt. And from what we understand, it's basically about a year's time passes between the end of Empire Strikes Back and the beginning of Return of the Jedi. So it very much feels, that time period, between those two films. It goes on this journey, with um, Boba Fett, with Han Solo and Carbonite, and Charles Soule, who also is the author of Light of the Jedi, the first book of the High Republic, which I think is super dope. He's also the author of this comic book series, which got me amped because, I just feel like he killed it on Light of the Jedi, with a really tough assignment, trying to start a whole new era of Star Wars, with a lot of critics and a lot of people, second guessing, the High Republic. I think he killed it with that. So I'm really excited to see what he does. And as you know, of the group, I'm the least, expert when it comes to the comic books, but I'm really excited to see this story arc about Boba Fett, in between Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. So, any initial, reactions to this latest announcement, from this Lucasfilm Marvel Comics crossover.
First of all, I just wanted to say Charles Soule's definitely the man. Like you know what I mean? Like his novel work, and then like his comic bibliography is like a mile long. Like it's obvious that they just let this dude just write. Like if he just shows up and is like, "Yo, I'm trying to write the Star Wars project," they're just like, "Okay, Charles Soule, here, take it." You know what I'm saying? So that's what's up. I definitely have faith it's going to be dope. But I think that even more though, like I think it's necessary because like, and I've heard you guys talk about this before with a little bit to give a little bit more context, but like we never really saw Boba Fett be badass. You know what I mean? Like too much in the prequel trilogy. Like it was super implied that he was badass. So we all knew it. Like I think everybody in the world knew he was badass before anybody even seen him on film. But it was like, it's gonna be dope to be able to have that timeline filled in to know like what badass stuff he was really doing.
Right.
You know what I mean? So yeah.
Nah, man. That comic book series, The War of the Bounty Hunters, you can look it up. Nate, I'm sure you'll get a kick out of it. It was a big comic book series in the 90s. We have like the thing about Pittsburgh is that we have good comic book stores here. You know what I'm saying? So you can go and get an ill reference. You know what I mean? So that was a big story arc in the comic book series, and if they're taken from that, then there's going to be a lot there. There's a lot to kind of dive into. One of the things to dive into, I think, is when I heard this is the fact that they may be developing Cad Bane's story. You know what I'm saying? And Bane is the bounty hunter from Clone Wars. He was the main bounty hunter in Clone Wars season 2, season 3, and he actually was in the comic book, right? And my man Keyway, shouts out to Keyway Lubna, you know what I'm saying, my man, my bro. He actually he read the comic books as well, and he reminded me that it was Bane who actually struck Boba Fett in his helmet in the comic book, and that gave Boba Fett a dent in his helmet. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
So like, so and then I was researching after the announcement was made, and some stuff that Filoni had said about Bane's character. And originally they was going to have Boba Fett in Clone Wars, and they scratched that story arc. So they was going to have Boba Fett and Bane be in Clone Wars together, right? What do we know from Bane, from that comic book series, is that Boba Fett knew Bane when he was younger, and it's kind of insinuated that Bane is like Boba Fett's mentor. You know what I'm saying? So and for those of you who aren't familiar with Bane's character, he's all throughout Clone Wars, like I said, season 2, season 3, and I think season 4. So if that happens, yo, man, it's gonna be off the hook. You know what I mean?
Right.
We got a lot to look out for. Because Bane was one of the most popular characters in the Clone Wars series with his bounty hunter skills. You know what I mean? So that's something to look out for. That's kind of what I wanted to add.
Right.
Yeah.
And I just want to add one of the ill things. I got the opportunity to check out, an interview with Charles Soule, where he was actually talking, specifically about, this War of the Bounty Hunters piece, and says, interestingly enough, that the actual the prelude is going to start where it appears that something happens and Boba Fett is no longer in possession of Han Solo and Carbonite. So that's how the story starts. Something happens between Cloud City and Bespin, and he is not in possession of Han Solo. And then part of the story arc in the 6 comic series is that much like the Child or Grogu in the Mandalorian, the Han Solo and Carbonite is something that a lot of people have interest in. You know what I mean? So much like, Mando, cruising the galaxy with Grogu and everybody looking for him.
Right.
That's kind of similar, it seems, at least how it's been explained, is Boba Fett is a very much similar position as Mando is with, Han Solo and Carbonite, and a lot of folks is trying to get at him, to get their hands on Han Solo and Carbonite. You know what I mean? So it seems like it's going to be a real ill. And like and Thando, like you said, with Charles Soule, I mean, when y'all get a chance to sink your teeth into Light of the Jedi, man, you'll be like, whoa, like this dude just took something with no source, with source material, but really, when we start dealing, like, if he's telling this story, from between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, there's more source material, there's context. But to write a story from 200 years before, Phantom Menace, and I feel like they hit it out of the park, just shows, the skills, that Charles Soule has, and how he's just one of the, best, Star Wars authors.
Here's another thing to kind of throw out there with this Boba Fett series, and the fact that last week we talked about Darth Maul, right? Ray Park. Right. Possibly joining, you know what I'm saying? And we talked about possibly him being in the Ahsoka series, or obviously it was like, oh, wait, he's going to be down with Obi-Wan. But nah, man, Darth Maul was around during that time, man. He's around, you know what I'm saying? During that time.
Right, yeah, because you got the organization, is it Black Sun?
Exactly, the Black Sun, exactly.
Yeah, from Han Solo when Darth Maul, and just a correction, we had mentioned last week that Darth Maul was in Rogue One, but we meant Darth Maul was in Solo.
Right.
At the end of Solo.
That was my fault.
Yeah. Oh no, that's all good. It's sometimes all the movies start to running together. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That was my fault. But that was the best. That was the best part of the Han Solo movie. That was him being at the end. That was like the best part. Right. You know what I'm saying? And that was him running the underworld at the time, right?
Exactly.
And he actually takes over the Black Sun move. You know what I'm saying? And the Black Sun, they actually got into the Black Sun in the Clone Wars episode, right? The Black Sun is kind of like some gangsters from Harlem, man.
Right.
That's why they named Black Sun. It's kind of funny. It's like they're kind of implied that they're black people, man. It's interesting, man. They're like Harlem gangsters, right? When you say that, Corey, when you say
You
that,
know, I never thought about it like that, but that's very interesting. And like we had talked about before, that so much of what George Lucas wanted the sequel trilogy to be about, was less about it. We talked about before, less about like kind of this imperialistic kind of colonial imperial force that the Empire represented, and then the antagonist would be more like, Darth Maul in the animated series. Like George Lucas wanted the antagonist of the sequel trilogy to be more like gangsters, more like crime lords, as opposed to kind of like philosophical zealots. You know what I mean? Like, kind of like obviously like Nazi Germany is such a big model, for the empire, but kind of like the zealot, kind of oppressive, political force, as opposed to kind of like gangsters that are trying to get paid.
Right.
Much more of like old school, corrupt, what I mean? Corruption, almost kind of like, underdeveloped world kind of governments, what I mean? Where you have like, as opposed to a powerful, empire, imperial force, you know what I'm saying? Which is real interesting.
Yo,
Definitely.
I would watch a prequel era whatever, or read a prequel era whatever about Jabba the Hutt versus Emperor Palpatine.
Right.
You know what I mean? And like him trying to influence the Senate, and then Palpatine doing what he didn't do to influence the Senate, and then ultimately seeing how that shakes out. Because I'm sure that it's kind of like the mafia in the 50s. Like once you get so big, like now your only competition is the feds. You know what I mean?
Right.
So like those are the people who you're dealing with on a daily basis. So like I think that would be dope. Like, but that'd be it.
Yeah. I mean, it's just so interesting, just that, that perspective. And then when you look at Mandalorian season 2, the first episode, and Jon Favreau called that his gangster episode with the John Leguizamo's character. Obviously he was in a costume,
Right.
And if you watch the season 2 Mandalorian Disney Gallery behind the scenes, they're actually reading the lines, because most of not almost every line that Pedro does in the suit, he actually does in the studio. You know what I mean? Like it's voiceover work. So him and John Leguizamo were doing the voiceover work in the studio, and John Leguizamo's reading the lines this way, that way. And Favreau was like, "No, I want you to channel your inner Don Corleone." You know what I mean? Like sit down, like it's impolite to talk, during the fight, whatever, the line, whatever line he says, but he's like, because Mando wants to start talking business. He's like, no, it's impolite. You know what I mean? With that, kind of like that Don Corleone, Marlon Brando kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
You could tell with that. And then going into, and one other thing that I'll say about the Boba Fett piece that was interesting is they also rumor that Charles Soule may hint at the beef between Bib Fortuna and Boba Fett, because obviously at the end of Mando, season 2, and they introduced the book of Boba Fett, and he kills Bib Fortuna. So they say so there's rumor that we're gonna find out what the beef was in this comic book series. It's gonna answer that question of why, Boba Fett, had to get at Bib Fortuna like that. You know what I'm saying? Which is going to be, interesting, you know what I mean, as well. But they kind of hint that we may get some clarity on what was the beef between Boba Fett and Bib Fortuna.
Yeah, man. I mean, because Bib Fortuna took over after, you know what I'm saying? He was a Don Corleone now. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So obviously something's up. And if that last scene from the Mandalorian from the last episode is correct, with Boba Fett running up in there, you know what I'm saying? He takes over. You know what I'm saying? So, and it's almost like it's right for him to take over. You know what I mean? Because it's interesting because Dane was never in charge, right? Django and all them were the Bobas and the Fetts. That house is all in charge of the underworld until Boba Fett got killed, right? Until he got eliminated. So right now in the Mando world, that is chaos right now. There's no one controlling the underworld. You know what I mean? And so if Boba Fett comes back to do that, that's going to be crazy. You know what I mean? The fact that he's controlling the underworld, and where does that go? how does that relate to the Mandalorian? How does that relate to Ahsoka? How does that relate to, you know what I'm saying? How does that relate to everything else going forward? Where would he be at? Will he be down with you know what I'm saying, with the Mandalorians from that point? Or will he just go all out war against them cats? You know what I'm saying? Because he's not truly a Mandalorian, right? So there's a lot of storylines that they can get into from that, you know? And the things that we're coming across is that they're going to crisscross and mesh a lot of these storylines, right? So they're taking a little bit from the comic book, right? But they're going to kind of mess around and kind of switch some things up, you know what I'm saying, too, with that. So we got to be expected for that. But they're using the comic books or the video game or what have you as a basis, or it's a groundwork for the script, you know what I mean? Which is exciting.
Right. Yeah. So we're definitely going to be keeping our eye on this Boba Fett, you know, War of the Bounty Hunters by Charles Soule, Marvel Comics. I think it's just going to get more crazy, you know, as these years go on, you know, as, you know, the Disney, you know, Marvel Studios, Lucasfilm, you know, partnership. I know there's a lot of, you know, criticism about it, but I think, you know, overall, you know, we've gotten, you know, particularly as of you know, most recently, you know, with Mando, you know, and the other projects that are coming online, you know, it looks like, you know, everything added up, obviously the sequel trilogy aside, you know what I mean? You know, things seem to be coming together. You know what I mean? It seems like, you know, like the pieces, you know, are forming.
Seem to be. Golly, man. Like we said last week, man, there's like 100 million people that's up on Disney Plus now.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yo, it's now like the number one app next to Netflix, man. You know what I'm saying? They're like the number one, number two streaming apps, depending on like who you look at or whatever, or who you kind of side with, you know. So for that to kind of blow up the way it did, there's gonna be a lot of resources for the shows, you know what I'm saying? A lot of resources are going to kick back in for the set design, for the stories, for top build actors. You know what I'm saying? All that stuff is going to make all of it right, since they got that base, they got that money. You know what I'm saying?
Right. No, absolutely. You know, we got Lando back with the child, with the child in the house. Yeah. So the next thing I wanted to jump to was just to give a quick, you know, rundown of the High Republic book by Justina Ireland. It's called A Test of Courage. Real interesting book. It's a teen book. It's a young adult book. It's much shorter than Light of the Jedi, which was about 13-14 hours on Audible. You know, runtime is about 4 hours. So much, you know, shorter listen. You know, if you're commuting, if you have to go to work, or, you know, you're commuting, or, you know, you're in the car for, you know, back and forth to work in a week, you know what I mean, you'll finish, you know, the story. But it's essentially, you know, it centers around 4 teenagers, one Jedi, Vernesta Rowe, who I mentioned before, who's one of the main characters of the High Republic era, who passed the trials at 15, is one of the most powerful, youngest, greatest Jedis in the history of the Order, one of the youngest knights in the history of the Order, and they are on a luxury spaceship to Starlight Beacon. As we mentioned, the Light of Jedi, it centers around the commemoration of Starlight Beacon, which is a space station, essentially the antithesis of Death Star. And obviously there was the great disaster, you know, that happened. And on their way to Starlight Beacon, they actually get attacked by the Nihil, and the ship explodes. Mostly everybody perishes except for these 4 teenagers. One is the son of an ambassador, one is the son of a senator, and then a Padawan whose master dies, saving them. And then Vernesta Rowe, you know, the young Jedi Knight, and it follows them on this adventure to this planet they had to land on, because they end up in the part of the ship that doesn't blow up, that successfully lands, and you know, they end up, you know, having, you know, basically a test of courage, right? You know, that's what the book is called, A Test of Courage. They end up on this planet that has like acid rain.
Wow.
You know, and they're sort of trying, and then the Nihil is also on the planet. So they end up actually capturing the Nihil, bringing them back to Coruscant. And then Vernesta, then Emery is the Padawan, and then she actually agrees to become Emery's master and takes him on because he lost his master.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? You know, and they have like this actually lightsaber duel because he's so mad that his master dies that he tries to go and kill the Nihil, and then she's like, "No, we can't do it like that." Then one other thing that I'll mention that's ill about Vernesta Rowe is she introduces the light whip. I don't know if you remember from the extended universe. There's been examples of the light whip where you turn your lightsaber into a whip, and she re-engineered her lightsaber and turned it into a whip. So it's not just like a sword; it's like a whip with like give and life. You know what I mean? Where it has a whipping action, is longer, and yeah, she pulled that joint out and caught wreck. You know what I'm saying? But it's also associated with potential dark force power. You know what I mean? But yeah, like, Vanessa Rose off the light whip, it started catching wreck. You know what I'm saying?
So how did they do it? How does it happen? Is it like
she just re-engineered the lightsaber so that instead of it be a sword,
it
kind of had to it, like, you know what I mean, like a whip. You know what I mean?
So it's not a sword. She's really
it's a whip. They call it a light whip. Yeah, they call it a light whip. You know what I mean?
You guys know, there's a lightsaber rifle that's technically canon.
Okay.
I think it came from, and you might be able to, someone of y'all might know better than me, but I think it was originally from Rebels. I know that it's canon. I can't remember for the life of me where it was introduced at, but like it's way more of a ridiculous concept than the light whip.
Yeah, the light whip. Yeah.
Like I don't know if we got blaster rifles, we might not need lightsaber rifles.
Yeah, man, we need to see that on film, or we need to see that in animation or something. You know what I'm saying? The light whip, yo.
The light whip sound crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I'm gonna drop something about it in the comments. Yeah, but that was really ill. Yeah, my dog. I think my dog is excited about the light whip too.
Right.
Yeah, so that was it's a like I said, it's for a younger audience. But again, if anybody really wants the full canon, you want to check that out as well as with the comics, which I haven't got into. And the last thing that I'll just say, from a High Republic standpoint, I am halfway through Into the Dark by Claudia Gray, who's done a ton of Star Wars books too, which is like, it's an ill story. It's super ill. I'm not going to get into all of the details, but it basically, again, centers around the Great Disaster. Mostly all the books all set around the Great Disaster. The folks are in hyperspace, have to jump out of hyperspace or somehow, so they had to jump out of hyperspace. So then they end up on an abandoned space station that is overcome with dark force power. That's basically haunted with dark force power. So then they have to figure out how to, manage to get off of the space station alive. That's basically consumed with dark force power, and then try to figure out how did it get here? How did this happen? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, right.
And it's interesting. A lot of the characters in the High Republic era, have these conflicts with the Order, you know what I mean? And a lot of the main characters are kind of people thinking outside the box, even though the Order is much more flexible than it is during the modern time. I feel like it's a very interesting juxtaposition, of all the writing where like this, this theme keeps coming up of having like these main characters that are kind of outside, they're painting outside the line, so to speak.
So there's no Sith in the High Republic books, right?
No, not yet. No, there's no Sith. But there are one of the main characters in Into the Dark is a Wayseeker, which is something I was introduced to in the book. And a Wayseeker is a Jedi, almost basically like Ahsoka would be like a Wayseeker. There's a person who deals with the light side of the Force, but does not see their path to the Force best through the Jedi Order.
It was like my man in Rogue One, right?
Right, almost.
Almost like that, right?
But he wasn't necessarily Force sensitive, so these were
right
that could wield the Force for the light, but decide not to do it, with the Jedi Order, per se.
Interesting. Fascinating, yo. I mean, that's like, as far as like what You know, like that's why I asked before, like, what was the antagonist? You know, because if they have in these books, if there's dark energy, like where is that coming from? If there's no active Sith, there has to be Sith there, right? You know what I mean? Because it's the old Republic, so there are Sith around, right?
Right.
In the canon, but they're not in the books, right? That's
Right.
interesting. So where is that dark energy coming from? And do we get to that point where Sith are introduced into the storyline? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So
You know?
what I'm guessing, this is at the point where the Sith would be at their weakest in history, at least in the Star Wars canon, because like you know the Jedi Order, while the Jedi Order is at its most powerful.
Yeah, there was a time when they were like they didn't think they were around, you know. And one of the when they in the Old Republic, I think it's in a video game where the Sith come and they attack the Jedi.
Yeah. On Coruscant.
On Coruscant, they come out of the low.
That's a crazy video.
That's a crazy video, man. Where they come and there's like they like 50 deep. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like first one red lightsaber ignite, and then it's like boom, boom, boom. It's like 50 lightsabers.
It's deep. That's a deep video. I'm gonna get the name of that video game before we leave. But you know, that was a time where the Jedi didn't think that the Sith were around. That's why I'm bringing it up. You know what I'm saying? So this may be a part of that storyline. Is what I'm saying is that they may feel like, oh, they're not here. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And one of the characters in the High Republic, and I'll find the name because I'm still getting used to learning all these characters. But and there's a point in Into the Dark, you know, where he mentions almost kind of like a Qui-Gon thing of, you know, the fact that he felt that Jedi's kind of commit a form of violence to the Force for the fact that they're separating the dark from the light. They're splitting it, so they feel as though that's an act of violence, and the fact that and it kind of establishes kind of more so how Palpatine pulled off what he pulled off, because it's kind of there's this general feeling that being that the Jedi separate themselves from the dark, they don't know the dark energy, they can't feel it. You know what I'm saying? They can't, they can't corral it, because they separate themselves from the dark energy, completely. So it becomes something that that's why they don't feel it. You know what I mean? That's why they don't feel everything that's happening in the prequels.
No doubt. No, what we were talking about was from the Star Wars Old Republic game. It came out in 2011. And it's the sacking of Coruscant is what we're talking about, right? What we referred to before, right? It's in the video game. It's called Star Wars: The Old Republic, 2011. You familiar with that, Nate? You got that?
Yeah, is that Knights of the Old Republic or is it Star? I know there's a couple different.
Knights of the Old Republic.
Knights of the Old Republic. Yeah.
So in that game, don't you play as Darth Revan?
Yeah, you can. Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. But he's a Jedi. He's a Jedi at the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I've only played little bits and pieces of it here and there.
Yeah,
my
fault. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I only played bits and pieces of it, but it definitely seemed dope.
Yeah. The trailer for when the Sith sack Coruscant is from that.
Yeah, I'm dropping it in right now. It's called.
Yeah. Yo, Nate, you'll feel that one, man. Definitely, man. You'll definitely feel that one.
I'm gonna hop back on it. I literally just re-downloaded it the other day. I just don't be finding time to get at it. But like one thing I do appreciate is like they made good Star Wars canon in those games.
Man, the cinematic trailers, man, was dope, was better than the movies at the point, man.
Right.
Like this is how bad the reason why I did download is I was having a Star Wars conversation with somebody else, and they were just like, man, you don't know about what, man. You gotta go play the Knights of the Old Republic. I'm just like, oh man, all right. All right, you got me. I gotta get on it.
Right. Yeah, no, it's crazy. Those videos are incredible. And one of the other interesting things about Into the Dark, there are these kind of Sith Dark Force artifacts that are, a part of this space station. And part of what they have to do to deal with it is they bring them back to Coruscant, and then they reveal, which has been mentioned previously, that there's these things that they call emergences, where the Force emerges in certain places, and these are the places where most of the temples are built. So the emergence that the Jedi Temple in Coruscant sits on has been mentioned in the past. Actually was originally a Sith emergence. Like the Sith were like, he's like, you don't create it, you discover it. So the Sith discovered this emergence in the Force. So the Jedi Temple sits on a Sith, you know what I mean, a Sith sacred site, basically, you know what I'm saying? And it's in the lower, so then like in the book it gets into like the lower sanctums where these steps in the basement of the Jedi Temple that actually the Sith built, you know what I'm saying? And this is where like different Dark Force relics that have Dark Force energy, they keep them to keep them contained, you know, so that the darkness doesn't spread across the galaxy, you know what I'm saying? But these are like the inner sanctums of the Jedi Temple, you know what I mean, on top of, you know, this ancient Sith site, which is like, you know, kind of crazy, but it's been mentioned, you know, in canon, you know, before, you know, I mean, people mentioned that might have been also why, you know, the Jedi didn't feel the Dark Force, you know, from Palpatine, because their temple actually, you know, sits, you know, on a Sith site, you know what I'm saying, which, you know, which is, you know, kind of ill, you know what I mean? But yeah, but you know, shouts out to Justina Ireland, you know, and Claudia Gray, you know, with Into the Dark. Justina Ireland with A Test of Courage. You know, she's a young African-American woman author, very well known for her young adult books. And she was part of the group of authors, I think it's about 6 of them, that were part of what was called Project Luminous, that was done at the Skywalker Ranch in 2018. And that group of 6 authors are the ones that are in charge of the novels and the comic books that are coming out from the High Republic era.
So can I ask
Sure.
your favorite, you have a favorite character so far from
Interesting.
the High Republic? You know, is there like a Jedi or, you know what I'm saying, someone that you really, really like? And would you like to see this character in live action at some point?
That's a great, yeah. No, that's a great question. I would say 2. You know what I mean? I would say I really dug Elzar Mann. I thought he was really cool in Light of the Jedi. You know, he was the Jedi that never used the Force the same twice. And that was a reason why he was a little bit delayed in becoming a master. You know, he was a knight for a really long time and then become a master. Because of that, you know, he liked, you know, he got it in a little bit, you know, like interesting as well. But then also Vanessa Rowe, you know, I would definitely like to see the light whip in live action. You know what I mean? You know, and she's like mad powerful.
She's a Jedi, right?
Yeah, she's a Jedi Knight.
She takes on a Padawan, and she's not that much older than the Padawan, right?
Right. Yep.
That's kind of like Obi-Wan and Anakin. You know what I'm saying? They're real close in age. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. So yeah, man. So I know Daniel, I know you haven't been able to jump in to the High Republic comments, but if you just talk about what you have collected so far and kind of the significance of that from a comic book collector standpoint.
Yeah, man. So I'm slow. I have like boxes and boxes of comic books I need to catch up and read. I buy them faster than I can read them. But let me see. I flip through all my Star Wars stuffs. Wait a second here. All right, I don't know where my stuff just went. No, yeah. So, all right, my bad. So, I got a bunch of High Republic comics. You know what I mean, and you know, featuring new characters that they're introducing into the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, I seen that one. Right.
That's Scare. He's
yeah.
And it's ill. My man got the one arm and like rushing the guy. I think that's a great cover.
Right.
Star Wars High Republic Adventures is also going crazy.
Okay.
I got a whole bunch of these.
You ain't cracked them yet. Did you crack? You ain't even crack them yet. You know what I'm saying?
That I didn't crack. That's what I'm saying. I have one set aside that I'm gonna sit down and read. And my daughter's actually reading them too. So
yeah. So why is that? Could you talk a little bit why that's important that you're keeping some in mint condition and you're getting multiple ones so you can have one to read and the rest to collect?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, so the biggest thing, Star Wars comic books are huge. They've been huge for a long time. You know what I mean? Since you guys, like I have Dark Horse Star Wars comic books from the 90s. You know what I mean? From the stuff that you guys are probably reading. And hold on, I don't know if you guys remember this from Shadows of the Empire back in the day, but like you know what I mean? Like they've been doing such a great job for such a long time. And so like there's great they build great anticipation around their books. And so like, you know, the fact that they're dropping the movies every day, and you know, we're seeing like characters from different ends of the Star Wars universe is huge. And you know, they're giving the comic books, they're giving us new characters from the High Republic, which is literally an era of Star Wars that we've never seen, which so most likely everybody that you see in the book is going to be somebody new. And so I think that, you know, it's just, if you're a comic book collector, someone like me, you know, it's dope to be able to take those and break them out 10 years from now, whenever you see, you know, so-and-so appear in the next film. But also, man, like, I just think they're dope pieces of art. You know,
Right.
they're beautiful pieces of art that you know, that exist in the context of this like fictional universe that we all appreciate.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like I think that
Mm.
they're dope, like for that reason. Like that's one of the illest things about like collecting comic books to me. You know, outside of like, you know, I love, you know, a dope storyline, but it's also dope to be able to have like a piece of art. And like I'm a segue because it isn't Star Wars, but the homie Big Phil hooked me up and got me in a raffle. Speaking of a piece of art, they hooked me up with this bad boy.
Oh wow.
The first appearance of Vixen, which is like you know, the first black woman superhero, and the first black teenage superhero in DC. And like, you know what I mean? Like I'm just like, that's a dope piece of black art. You know what I mean? So like, you know, just
Right.
to add to the like the speak of it all.
No doubt, man. Now, comic books, you know, for those of you who are old enough, you know, the comic book, Star Wars comic book, the Marvel series, the late 80s, I mean the mid 80s, all the way through the 80s and the 90s is a lot of is the reason why, is a big reason why Star Wars blew up the way it did and became this pop cultural phenomenon around the world. Is through the comic books, man, and through the novel, and then those fed the novels, and the comic books fed the novels, and then both of those fed the video games. You know what I'm saying? And now all of it is feeding Disney Plus shows, you know,
Right.
that we're seeing. So it's an interesting interplay, you know. But there were no books like after the first Star Wars. There was just comic books that we all picked up on, you know what I'm saying? And I was like continuing the stories or continuing these adventures. So the comic book series is very, very vital to the whole Star Wars, you know, I guess phenomenon over the last 40 years or so, you know?
If
and
they
so it's
weren't,
good.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Nate. Go.
No, I was just going to ask you, Brother Lukey, if they weren't giving us the novels and the comic books for those years since Return of the Jedi, would there have been a taste for Phantom Menace?
No, man, I don't think so. I don't know if Kahari can
Probably
answer
not
that
in the
too.
same way. You know,
Yeah, not in the same way. Exactly. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It would. I think you know, it would be more, you know, just focused on the movie events himself. You know, whereas, you know, I think it kept the fan base, you know, alive. I mean, obviously, it still would be big, but not in the same, you know, way. You know, in just the diehard fandom. You know, that the video games and the novels and the books and stuff, you know, were able to you know, keep the stories alive, as well as engage all those other authors. You know what I mean? Just all that content, you know, creation just creates a life of its own and creates a collective kind of sense, you know, of kind of you know, of like this artistic kind of movement, you know what I mean, where you have like dozens and dozens of authors now all have written Star Wars stuff that are all kind of part of this ecosystem.
Yeah, and when they started, you know, when the novels first started, George had an issue with that. On the low, man, he had an issue with it. He wasn't feeling it. They had to deal with the comic books, Marvel, that was cool. But when people started writing novels, George wasn't feeling that, man.
Right.
And it took him a while to kind of get used to that idea. You know what I'm saying? And once Lucasfilms and all of that kind of picked up with the Phantom Menace, by that time he was cool with it.
Right.
But when the books first started dropping, oh man, it was a war, man. He wasn't feeling it. He wasn't feeling these.
Me and Thando had I know Thando had sent something around about a month and a half ago about George Lucas, you know, basically, you know, like saying like, yeah, like the EU and Legends and all that stuff. Like, yeah, we let people kind of write them stories, but like really the real story is just the movies. And that's pretty much, because you said that around, right?
Yeah, like, all right, George Lucas, whatever you say. Meanwhile, my son Timothy Zahn been out here giving us that fire for decades.
Right.
Like, hey, like you know, like I read Heir to the Empire in like the early mid '90s, and I'm just like, man, I don't even know if I'd even seen a Star Wars movie yet at that point. But I was reading that like, yo, this is crazy. Like I was like, this is the illest. You know what I mean? Like I think the one thing that really made it stick is that the writers who were doing it did well by the product. Which
Yeah, man.
You know what I mean? Like they really did well by that. Like you know what I mean? Like it in like I can't really think of too many instances where they were just putting out Star Wars BS. You know what I mean? Like
they
you know,
added to
like as far as like novels and stuff like that. You know, they did well. They were like treated respectfully throughout.
Right. No, definitely, man. Nah, man, they definitely handle it with care. You know, there was fans first. You know what I'm saying? And they delve into a lot of things. And you wouldn't have a Dave Filoni, you know what I'm saying? At the level that he's at without those books, man. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I mean, he draws a lot from the books. He draws a lot from those stories, man. He did a lot of that in Clone Wars as well as Rebels. You know what I mean? He drew a lot from the novels as well as the comic books as well. You know what I mean? So he's a nerd. He's ahead, man, with that. You know what I mean? So it definitely kept the lore going. It expanded the universe. Now you have all these stories and all these narratives and all these characters that you can just draw from. You know what I mean? Like we wouldn't know full and tell Darth Plagueis story if it wasn't for that novel. You know what I mean? I wouldn't know who Darth Raven is, who was one of my favorite Star Wars characters all throughout history, right? If it wasn't for that novel, the Darth Vader novel, and really getting into that, you know what I mean? And getting into that character. So they definitely have they're definitely very, very important.
What's crazy is we could really have that, like, that whole favorite character conversation and not mention a character from any of the movies. Right. I was just thinking about that, like, man, if I like, because we had that conversation before. I'm like, yo, if we made it 3, I could probably come up with 3 characters that I could say are my favorite characters who haven't been in a movie. That's deep, that's deep. Like that really speaks to the fact that they were really they were writing that shit. Like they were writing that gas. And I don't want to mispronounce your people's name. Anire?
Yeah. That's my brother. Yep.
All right. Yeah. So like that Heir to the Empire and that trilogy like did so much for like the story of Luke Skywalker. Like, you know what I mean? Like adds so much context. Like yeah, it was ill. And we were talking before the call started, Kahari, about like the early like Jedi Academy novels and the novels with Jace and the Solo kids.
Right.
You know what I mean? And like they were like in the recent young adult book, the Test of Courage. Like they've been given like the young adult content for so long that like young kids grew up reading some of those books and became heads that way too. Like yeah, it's ill, man. They got the whole market cornered through that.
If it wasn't for George, though, if George had it right, man, all the books would have been shut down. You know what I'm saying? And the video games, you know what I mean? And we would just had the movies.
Yeah, I bet he's one to admit he was wrong now, though.
Yeah, no doubt. yeah, right.
And I bet he took all that bread.
But that's what helped build, Lucasfilm. It's like he took all that money he made and kept putting it back into the company, so they could start doing, THX and and all the stuff they did,
no doubt.
That would not have happened without the licensing, the action figures, and the comic books and all that stuff. Yeah. So in that same vein, one major announcement, Nintendo, Zynga and Lucasfilms announced upcoming competitive arena combat video game that will be coming to the Nintendo Switch system in 2021. The game is called Star Wars Hunters. It will bring players together to engage in thrilling team-based multiplayer battles featuring a diverse array of distinctive new Star Wars characters. It is set after the fall of the Galactic Empires. It will connect players in real time to battle in arena settings inspired by iconic Star Wars locales. Play as daring bounty hunters, heroes of the rebellion, or an Imperial stormtrooper in an action game that immerses players in a fast-paced and visually stunning Star Wars conflict. So that is Star Wars Hunters. That will be coming out on the Nintendo Switch device. We put a link to that. That's really interesting. We'd love to get, your feedback, Nate, as the resident, video game expert, at Lando's Palace. Does the concept, pique your interest at all?
I feel like I just already played that. Isn't that Star Wars Battlefront?
I mean, that's why you're the resident expert, man.
Yeah. No, I'm
you with these questions.
Talking stuff a little bit.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna play. I mean, I don't have a Nintendo Switch. If I did, I would play it. You know what I mean? But like, really, what I want is what they're promising us now is that open world Star Wars game where I get to travel around the universe as a bounty hunter, a Jedi, something like that. You know what I mean? Like, take all right, bud. I know. Take what they were building with the Old Republic and Knights of the Old Republic series and build on that. Like, we've had the Star Wars Battlefront, and then they just came out Battlefront 2 about a year ago. They were very similar. Like, you get a dope locations in the Star Wars universe. You got a fight guy. I don't know. I'm not, but I think what Zynga offers is basically what Chuck's saying is that like it's like the animation is that's basically what they're offering is like a more like down to earth like animation package that is more accessible to people of all ages for real.
That's kind of what it's
Switches for.
Yeah, that's kind of what it seems like. You know what I mean? It's kind of like the Battlefront was for Xbox, right? Battlefront was Xbox, right?
And PlayStation, yeah.
And PlayStation, exactly. So it's a little bit for gamers, a little bit older. You know what I'm saying? Like, shouts out to my man Akil. He had the Battlefront game every time I was in the studio with him. He had it on playing, you know what I'm saying? So definitely it's for older gamers. It seems like this one is more geared to younger audiences. You know what I'm saying? I think that's the difference. I think they're gearing the hunters to like preteen, teen with Nintendo. I looked at the art, you know what I'm saying? Whereas the Battlefront joint looks like a movie, yo. Like, playing that joint, it's like, man, it's like watching a film. You know what I mean? So it seems like with the Nintendo, the hunters, like y'all said, they're bringing the animation down a little bit. And I think it's going to be more geared to a younger audience,
Right. Yeah. Now, so we'll definitely, particularly for our gamers out there, we'll continue, to follow that. In other news, latest reports that that Aladdin actor Mina Massoud is going to be cast as Ezra Bridger in the upcoming Ahsoka series.
Yeah.
Plus.
Yeah.
I've never seen Aladdin. I'm not familiar, with the gentleman. But there's been a lot of speculation about Ezra Bridger. There was a lot of speculation that they thought that he may show up in the final episode of Mando season 2. So it looks like there's more. We're seeing more and more rumors, more and more talk. As these other kind of iconic characters from that era that have been explored deeply in the animated realm now begin to get cast for live action. And I know, Lukman, you're the resident expert on the animated, series, you know what I mean? And I know, you follow the animated series and know these characters, very well, but any initial, reaction on the latest news that they may have cast as Ezra Bridger for the Ahsoka series?
Yeah, man, we've been hearing like, man, this is like the 5th one so far, man, dude, that come across. I mean, I'm just looking at, I haven't seen Aladdin, but I just looked at him and say, okay, he looks like him. You know what I mean? Like they look like him. Ezra is a very, very important character from the Star Wars Rebels. It's someone that Dave Filoni actually created himself. Like he created Ahsoka. And they have a very strong bond, Ezra and Ahsoka. You know what I mean? So it looks like he's going to be showing up in the Ahsoka series. Will he be a Jedi? We don't know. You know what I'm saying? Is Ahsoka going to be his basically master, but she's not really taking on a Padawan? It's going to be interesting because she's not a Jedi, or she doesn't proclaim herself to be one. So those things and those storylines are going to be very, very interesting. One thing I will say about Ezra, he is very, very strong in the Force. Very, very strong, but he's rebellious though. He has a rebellious nature. He has a rebellious thing in him, a rebellious streak, and he likes to do things on his own sometimes, right? That can get him in trouble. So we'll see where that goes.
Yo, I'm excited for that. I peeped that. I like the Aladdin dude. I could honestly like from his acting in Aladdin, I could see it happen.
Mm,
I don't know if you ever watched Jack Ryan, but he played on that too.
mm, mm,
Yeah. He's a solid young actor, man. I think he's gonna kill that. And also, but like I haven't watched a ton of Rebels, but I've seen enough, and I know that Ezra is dope. Like that's a dope character, and it's gonna be dope for them to bring that into the live action universe. Because I think that the number one question that a lot of Star Wars fans have is like, yo, what are all the Jedi doing during these times? Like, what happened to so and so? Where is so and so at when they were making this project? Like, you know what I mean? Like that's number one criticism I hear is like, oh, when they were doing this, like where was so and so at? Like, and this adds more context.
right.
I actually heard that in Mandalorian, I heard a lot of fans say that they would have wanted that to be Ezra who showed up to save them rather than Luke. Like, but yeah.
Nah, there was a lot of heads saying that. Yeah, I saw that too. Yeah, my man Keyway, shouts out to Keyway. He was hoping the same thing. He was actually hoping it would be Ezra instead of Luke. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I'm not mad at that, but I mean, come on, we needed Luke, bro.
I'm not mad at it either. I think Aneri knew that too. Me and Aneri were talking about them on Facebook. We were like, I was like, yo, Ezra. Aneri brought it up. He's like, yo, I think it's gonna be Ezra. We kind of communicated, and then after it was Luke, I sent him a message. It was like, yo, I ain't mad at it, bro.
Right.
He probably remember that if he's looking at it. You know what I'm saying? Looking at this, but Ezra is a really important character, man. Him and Ahsoka have a real strong bond, and he actually saved Ahsoka during the fight of Darth Vader when she was fighting Darth Vader, and they actually went into the other world, which is a whole other gamut of the Force and what have you. And I think we're going to get into that in the Ahsoka series. And this is something that Dave Filoni is like writing. You know what I'm saying? So we know he wrote, or his hand was really strong in Rebels and Clone Wars, and he's writing the Ahsoka series. So he's definitely going to bring Ezra in. Ezra is one of his favorite characters, by the way. Ahsoka is his favorite character, but Ezra, if you catch any interviews with him talking about Ezra, you'll see his face light up. He really likes Ezra. So it's going to be interesting to see the character development. Again, Ezra is real strong in the Force. Real strong. You know what I'm saying? And he can kind of do things. He has a real strong connection with nature. He can talk to animals. Like he does things that other Jedi never really done before, right? He can like talk to like, animals and bring like wolves, a crowd of wolves to like help him with a battle. He's done that before. So he has things and he has abilities that other Jedi that we haven't seen before.
Right.
That Ahsoka Darth Vader fight is one of the hardest fights, bar none, from any movie, film, anything. They got it so cracking. Like that.
You watched that, Nate? Did you watch that?
I watched it. Now I'm mad that I'm mad that I just went and watched that fight. Like I'm mad that I didn't watch the stuff leading up to it. Because I'm like, I'm sitting there, I got a tear forming in the corner of my eye. I'm sitting there like, man, like I don't even really know what's going on here. But this is ill. They got it cracking.
Ahsoka.
Yeah.
Anakin?
Yeah, whenever she realized it was
she was like, yo, what? And then she was like, yo, I'm not leaving you. I'm not leaving you this time. No, but what got me though, Nate, was when Darth Vader said, yo, she was like, did you kill? What's up? Where's Anakin? And he's like, I killed him. She's like, well, I will avenge his death. And Darth Vader says, avenge is not the Jedi way. And she says, I'm no Jedi. Yo.
Right. They got to cry.
Hey, when she said that.
Yes. That's how you write, and that's how you like write an animated series. Like that was it right there.
That was so emotionally charged. Their fight was so emotionally charged. If anybody wants to see a lightsaber fight, just look up Ahsoka, Darth Vader, Star Wars Rebels. It's like 3 minutes long. You can get it on YouTube, and it's one of the most emotionally tense lightsaber duels in Star Wars lore ever. Straight up, master against the apprentice.
Right.
But like her not knowing and then finding out in the middle of the joint, like that was
when his mask out. Oh, am I right? Right. I'm glad you felt that, Nate. I'm glad I'm not alone in that. That makes me feel good.
Yeah, and it reminds me there's a dope scene in the Obi-Wan Kenobi book, which is no longer considered canon. Where Obi-Wan finds out by a holocron news report that Anakin is Darth Vader. And he just
Mm.
just starts bugging out. You know what I'm saying? He starts totally bugging out. Yeah, but so like as we get ready to close, there was one other news item I did want to share that Star Wars author E.K. Johnson is completing her Padme book trilogy with the new book called Queen's Hope. It's exploring Padme's life during her early years on the Senate floor, on the throne of Naboo, and ultimately entangled with Anakin Skywalker. Interesting use of words, entangled. A little Jada Pinkett influence there. Jedi general during dark time in the galaxy's history. While Anakin excels at leading the clone soldiers, Padme is horrified by repercussions left behind on war-torn planets. Although the peace-loving senator is an active member of the Republic's lawmakers, she employs her loyal handmaiden when duty calls for her secret mission that forces her double to serve the Senate for an extended period, witnessing the war from the political arena. And for those who are unfamiliar with E.K. Johnson, she is also the author of 2016's Ahsoka, that tells the tale of Anakin's former Padawan between the end of the Clone Wars and her reemergence as a rebel operative. And then also we mentioned that it was completing the trilogy, the Padme trilogy, which is the first one was Queen's Shadow that came out in 2019, and Queen's Peril that came out in 2020. So for those again into the books, check out. I have not checked out Queen's Peril or Queen's Shadow. I think I might check out that Ahsoka first, and she was also very involved with from a certain point of view, which I talked about, which is kind of the alternative point of view history of Empire Strikes Back, where it looks at like every scene from the perspective of a side character, as opposed from the perspective that we saw it, from the movie. So a lot of content, and man, it's just. I mean, I always feel like on Monday morning, what are we going to talk about on Sunday? And I feel like how Thursday or Friday comes, there's always
something, man.
Enough stuff to talk about. So before we leave, let's get you guys parting shots for the week. Anything that we should be looking out for? Anything that's been on your mind from a Star Wars point of view?
I just go, man. I just kind of wanted to add, man, about Padme. You brought up Padme. It's the last thing I'll say this week about Padme. And this, was just thinking about her, man. Is thinking about how well her character was developed. You know what I mean? Even from the prequel movies, you know what I mean? And if you think about her character, she's a very strong character, and I think George and them, they did a real good job, and it was carried on obviously in Clone Wars as her character development as a woman, and developing her character and her piece, her portion, or place, I should say, in the universe is real strong, and to juxtapose that against what Kathleen Kennedy did in developing characters and trying and forcing these women who are like heroes on us, you know what I mean? Like forcing that whole process instead of this naturally allowing the character to develop, like with Princess Leia, with Padme, and what have you, where these are strong characters, strong women in the universe, so on and so forth. So I was kind of wanting to make that juxtaposition because with Rey, there was some problems, it was mad potential, as we said earlier, but there were some problems. So with Padme, it wasn't really like that. Her character was really strong throughout and has been strong,
Yeah, I've always felt like the biggest challenging thing, with Padme's character, I just felt like there was a certain lack of chemistry, between her and Hayden. You know what I mean? It's like for some reason they just didn't have that magic that a lot of you want to have, when you have a romantic couple, in a film where it really feels like, and I feel like she's a very accomplished actress.
Right. Natalie Portman. Exactly. Yeah.
She's been in a ton of films as a young kid. You know what I mean? I feel like, there was just a certain disconnect between their chemistry and energy. You know what I'm saying?
Corey,
when I think that as a kid in the movies, I always thought it must have been because Hayden was a weirdo. Because I peeped that too, and I'm just like, if I'm on screen with Natalie Portman. Yeah.
Exactly.
Natalie Portman must have been like,
right.
Yeah, I kind of put that on the direction. I think that looking at it from the actor's perspective, Hayden made some serious bad choices in their scenes. You know what I mean? He played real bratty, and it was almost like it came across unrealistic, right? I mean, as a young woman looking at, you gonna love this dude. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like, he's bratty, he's always crying to you. You know what I'm saying? He's always like complaining to you. Like, that's really, you know, he goes on a temper tantrum. I mean, there's so
Right.
many things. You're like, really? Is
Right.
that really realistic? You know?
Yeah,
So
like, come on, Pat, man, you're not going for this dude, man.
exactly, man.
Right.
Come on, man. You're gonna go through somebody, you gotta go through somebody else. So
We'll get you an Obi-Wan out here.
exactly.
Yeah, and it was interesting because one of the lines that always stick out to me is just like that key moment. You know, it was like at that key moment, you know, she's like you're going down a path I can't follow, and it's just like it was almost kind of like she's talking about, oh yeah, like I don't want to go to McDonald's with you. You know what I mean? Not like, yo, like this is gonna be like the most devastating thing. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, you know what I mean? Like it's like Luke Moss, like you coming home with like, you know, like a pork rib buffet, like, you know, like everybody gonna be down. You know what I'm saying? In the Salam house tonight. You know what I'm saying? And it's just your wife just like, you're going down a path I can't follow. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like, yo, like you're like trying to retrocon the entire existence of the galaxy, yo. Like, you're about to go kill younglings.
Right.
You know what I mean? It seemed like it was just such more of a poignant, emotional moment that it just seemed like, you know what I mean? Like it would just seem like it wasn't. They didn't capture like the whole intensity of that moment. But also, they are younger people, you know, and younger people in those situations don't necessarily always have the emotional depth that older people have.
We come back to this all the time, man.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it was just the director, though, man. You know what I mean? It was direction. You know what I'm saying?
Now go ahead.
I was going to say that, like, in watching like a lot of science fiction, like I don't know if you guys ever watched The Expanse on Amazon Prime. If you don't,
I haven't, but my brother Neri talks about it a lot.
Outstanding. But like, so like everything they do, they're always saving the universe, right? Luke Skywalker saving the universe. So I always think like in the context of the universe, once a guy saves the universe and like a few years pass, like what are you in the context of that universe? Are you like, for lack of a better word, Jesus? You know what I mean? Like, so like I've been thinking about like in Padme and like the character that she is. Like, first of all, I've heard those books were amazing, but I always think like Padme is like the mother of the guy who saved the universe, the mother of the guy and lady who saved the universe. And I'm just wondering, like, you know, I would love to definitely like read up and catch up on some more books and figure out like what is her legacy. You know what I mean? Years later in the Star Wars universe, because like obviously, like she fathered. First of all, she dealt with Anakin Skywalker, period. But then she mothered, I apologize, Luke and Leia. And like, you know, they changed the entire course of the galaxy for, you know, trillions of people. So I don't know, that's all I was thinking about.
Right. Yeah, man. I think that's a great way to end. You know,
real quick.
You have the final word.
Yeah, that's want to say something real quick as far as the Padme, you know what I'm saying? Filoni kind of insinuated in Clone Wars that Obi-Wan knew about her and Anakin, and Ahsoka knew about her and Anakin. So I just kind of wanted to say that in the last season. He kind of insinuates that she knew, that Ahsoka definitely knew, and Obi-Wan was kind of like getting hip to it. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah, man. So another awesome episode of Lando's Palace, episode 11. Man, we dealt with the brand new Marvel announcement of the Boba Fett War of the Bounty Hunters series that's coming this summer. We discussed the new Nintendo Star Wars Hunters game. Talked about Mina Massoud potentially being cast as Bridger. E.K. Johnston's new Padme book. Again, we have no idea what we're going to talk about next Sunday, but we know there's going to be 6 or 7 new Star Wars things. But the one thing we are not going to beat the dead horse, the Gina Carano piece. You know what I'm saying? We're going to walk from that. I know there's still some stuff going on with that. There's a lot of chats rooms. They're still posting stuff and having that battle. You know, we're moving on from that. You know, looking forward to the Bad Batch coming out. Still waiting for that D23, announcement. For that, and and whatever news we get, over the next week, we will be here to share it. Again, we'll be back at our normal time, Sunday at 11 a.m. But thanks for those who joined us for the special Sunday matinee edition of Lando's Palace. So thanks for joining us among the clouds, and join the discussion group. on Facebook, Among the Clouds discussion group, where we talk about a lot of stuff in the Star Wars universe. Share some cool stuff. I found like a dope little piece that somebody did, a fistful of Beskar,
Best.
kind of taking the spaghetti western motif and mixing it with with Mando. Like that was dope. So we do a lot of fun stuff on there. So yeah, thank you again for joining us Among the Clouds, transmitting from the planet Bespin, Cloud City. May the force be with you. On behalf of the Nathandalorian, Great Jedi Luki, this is Kahari Mosley, and we will see you next Sunday at 11 a.m. on Lando's Palace. Until then, may the force be with you.
Peace.
Peace.